I've picked 5 sports that have some of the fittest athletes in the world. Let's see which one comes out on top. Let's start with the first contender, which is fighters, so like MMA. First of all, you need amazing cardio because you're outputting at a pretty high intensity for like several rounds lasting like 3 or more minutes. And if you've ever sparred for like 2 or 3 minute rounds, you know how long those feel and how brutal they can be if you're really throwing a lot of strikes. A couple studies have been done on boxers' heart rate like during rounds, and it's pretty much zone 4 or 5, close to their max heart rate for almost the entire round. There's not many other sports where you have to maintain that level of performance for several minutes. Along with that, you need really good muscular endurance. Like if you're throwing a lot of punches, being able to keep your hands up is going to really burn out your shoulders. If you're bouncing around a lot, your calves can get quite tired. You also need a decent level of strength, especially if you're doing a sport like wrestling or some kind of grappling, where you need to overpower your opponent and maybe pick them up, throw them around. Obviously, there's a lot of like skill using your opponent's weight against them, but pure strength is definitely helpful, especially in like wrestling. As well as that, you need speed, power, and precision for striking. You need amazing reaction times in order to defend yourself, to spot opportunities, and as well as that, you need good fight IQ to know what moves you should make to win the round or the match. So in my opinion, fighters are absolutely a contender for like the fittest athletes and the most well-rounded athletes in the world. It's pretty much the most primal sport there is. In any other sport, it's like if you beat someone, it's like, yeah, you won the match or whatever, but they might still be able to actually beat you up in a fight. But in fighting, like, you know, if you lose a match in MMA or something, if this was in the wild, like, you would have lost, you could have been seriously injured or died. It is the most primal, the most brutal sport there is, in my opinion. And that really necessitates being on point in all aspects of your fitness, because unconsciously you think, if I lose this fight, like, I die, my reputation is ruined. The consequences are really serious. Moving on from fighting, we have CrossFit. The whole point of CrossFit is basically to develop every physical trait so that you can be ready for like any physical situation. And the 10 aspects of fitness in CrossFit are endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility, power, speed, coordination, agility, balance, and accuracy. Of course, the one thing they are really missing is like combat ability, and they don't train that within CrossFit itself. It's more like pure expressions of fitness and physical capability rather than skill so much. Most CrossFit workouts involve a mix of lifting weights, some kind of high intensity cardio like burpees or riding the assault bike or rowing, and maybe some kind of explosive movement like box jumps or throws. And people really clown on CrossFit all the time, and fair enough, their pull-ups look like really silly and injuries are really common, but CrossFit definitely produces some very impressive physical specimens. Very often when I see someone in the gym and they're like pretty jacked and lean and they're lifting some impressive weight, especially in the Olympic lifts, they're probably a CrossFitter. They'll go from squatting like a few plates to then handstand push-ups against the wall and then smashing out a minute of hard rowing, and do this for like 5 rounds with almost no rest. It's very impressive, and most people who make fun of CrossFit could not do what these CrossFit athletes do. Doing all of those things in the same workout definitely isn't the fastest way to develop each of those aspects of fitness, but the point of CrossFit is to be prepared for like every physical situation all the time. So that could involve carrying something over a distance and then like climbing up and then like sprinting back somewhere. So it's kind of a random mix of lots of different situations that you could be in. It's not like other sports where you have periodized blocks of training to specifically train like your strength in the off season and then like work on skill work for your sport during like the in season or the pre-season. Every aspect is trained throughout every week of training. Question is, if an athlete from another sport entered a CrossFit competition, how would they do with their existing fitness? How would they stack up against CrossFit athletes? Well, they might do pretty well at individual events, like depending on their sport, but the combination of really different activities in the same circuit is pretty unique to CrossFit. And CrossFit athletes obviously train specifically for these weird mixed up CrossFit workouts. So even a super fit athlete from another sport probably wouldn't be able to outperform a good CrossFit athlete in a CrossFit workout. The next sport I have is decathlon, which is a track and field sport where 10 different events are held, and your overall performance at the end of all the events determines your position on the leaderboard. So the events are 100-meter sprint, long jump, shot put, high jump, 400-meter sprint, 110-meter hurdles, discus throw, pole vault, javelin throw, and 1500 meters. And decathletes aren't going to put up world-class numbers in like any of these events, but they have to be pretty good at all of them in order to get a good overall score. So an Olympic sprinter would be 10 out of 10 in sprinting, but they might be more like a 6 out of 10 in the rest of these events. Whereas a decathlete would be more well-rounded at like a 7 or 8 out of 10 in all of these, but not a 10 out of 10 in any of them. So decathletes are very versatile. They can sprint, throw, jump, and run short distances very well. But there aren't any long distance events here, so their endurance might not be as good as a CrossFit athlete or a fighter who've got to maintain their performance for much longer periods of time. The next sport I have is rugby. In rugby, you need size and strength for tackles and scrums. You need speed, obviously, for sprinting down the field. You need endurance to keep running for like an 80-minute game. So rugby is somewhat similar to American football, but rugby is definitely much more constant action. There's less stopping in between plays. You don't have like ad breaks and stuff. You're almost constantly moving for 40 minutes at a pretty high intensity. Then you have a 15-minute break in the middle, and then you have 40 minutes in the second half. Obviously, you also develop coordination and teamwork, which is something you don't necessarily get from non-team sports like decathlon or CrossFit. And lastly, we have men's gymnastics. So events like the rings, the pommel horse, and the parallel bars. These events require some crazy strength and mastery of your body in order to perform well on them. And you can just look at the upper bodies of these male gymnasts, especially like their biceps for the ring specialists. They are crazy. They're all super lean and completely jacked. Obviously, they're using steroids, and so are most top level athletes in any sport. But despite all of these athletes using steroids, they don't all have the same kind of physique. The men in gymnastics obviously have massive biceps because they use them so much, like on the rings, stabilizing themselves on the pommel horse and on the bars. They have big chests too. Their whole upper body pretty much is very well developed. They have to have crazy muscular endurance to be able to keep up their performance for like about a minute, depending on the event, pretty much supporting their body weight in whatever position they're in, like an iron cross on the rings or something. These are positions that require so much strength, and you have to hold them for like 3 seconds, so you need crazy endurance as well. Obviously, the events don't last that long, so their cardiovascular endurance is probably not going to be as good as something like a rugby player who has to run for pretty much 80 minutes. So out of these 5, which one is the fittest athlete, the most well-rounded? I would say in decathlon, there's not enough of a strength component. Like CrossFitters and rugby players are probably going to be stronger than decathletes. In gymnastics and also in decathlon, there's not much of a endurance component. The events only last like a few minutes at most. So I'm going to say it's between rugby, CrossFit, and fighters. I have a lot of respect for really good CrossFitters, but there's not so much of a competitive aspect to the sport. I know CrossFit is super competitive, but it's not like you're actually striking other men who are like trying to beat you like you are in fighting and rugby. Those are much more primal sports. Like rugby is pretty much a combat sport, like a contact sport. A lot of tackles, using your physical strength to overpower other men. So I think it's going to be between fighters and rugby players. If it came down to who would win in a fight, obviously fighters have the upper hand, especially if you're like matched in body weight. A small fighter versus a big rugby player, it would be less clear. There's a reason weight classes exist, because pure mass is absolutely an advantage and pure strength. Rugby players are going to be bigger and stronger than fighters generally. Their cardio is probably going to be at least on par, because at least in terms of their long duration endurance, because the matches last longer than fights do. It's very hard to choose between them, and I've been making it sound like rugby is going to take the upper hand, but I think I am going to say fighters. The level of conditioning that they have and their speed, their precision, footwork, amazing cardio, they're decently strong, and obviously they're lethal, especially if they're big and quick. I'm going to give it to fighters in this case. I'm sure many people would disagree with me in the comments, and that is what I intend. Hopefully you have something to say about what you think the fittest sport is. It might be something that's not on this list, like football or American football, or even like tennis or something. I'll probably make another video with like 5 other sports that are contenders for this top spot. But for now, I'm going to say fighters is like the most well-rounded, kind of practical sport. It'll make you extremely fit. If you combine like the conditioning and the skill work and the defense with like strength training and even bodybuilding training to put on size, you're going to be an extremely well-rounded athlete as a fighter. I think that's kind of the ultimate athlete. Like really good cardio, really strong, big, and able to fight. Alright guys, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Check out my physique programs in the description, and I'll see you in the next one.